To announce that there must be no criticism of the president is morally treasonable to the American public. Teddy Roosevelt. Before we start the media, I want you to think of a few things. Because currently, in this political climate, in 2018, the media, in a lot of different corners of a lot of different places in DC and beyond, is considered an enemy. So I want you to think, how many of you believe that the sun revolves around the earth? How many of you believe that the earth revolves around the sun? And what evidence do you have to prove that this is correct? So whenever you think of anything or any information that you've received from a news source, just be aware that behind everything there are facts. Mass media, a linkage institution. In fact, it's the last linkage institution. Behind the interest groups, behind the public policy, and behind the elections, is the mass media, telling us, the American people, as much information as they possibly can, making money off of it, what we need to know. Modern mass media. There are a lot of media choices out there. Personally, my favorite media choice is podcast. And yes, I listen to podcasts that, for the most part, make me shake my head and say, yup, you're right, that's right, I agree. I don't listen to a lot of stuff that doesn't match my own opinion. And that's pretty true of every American. There's a lot of choices for what we can watch and how we are exposed to the facts or what's going on in public policy today. It can help and it can hurt democracy. Increased access to information, making us a more informed electorate, is definitely a benefit to a democracy. Because the more information that we're armed with, the better we can make decisions that are going to have a positive impact on the public good. What is not great is consumer-driven media. Right now, news networks focus a lot on attracting viewership. Because when you have more viewership, you have higher ratings, you can sell more ads and make more money. If you're an internet, a website, and you're giving the news through the internet, the more clicks that people have on your stories, the more ads you can sell on your site, and you're going to make more money. So this causes networks to focus on sensational things, meaning it causes networks to focus on the craziest stories, the most outlandish things that we can learn, not necessarily details and facts about the news. News outlets and sites are very ideologically driven. We all know, you've heard, Fox News is going to be very much catering to a Trump supporter in the Republican base. Whereas MSNBC or CNN, that's going to be very much the mouthpiece for Democrats, and it's going to be trying to attract the liberal base. But it's even beyond that. Actual news sites, you have more conservative, all the way to alt-right news sites like Drudge Report or Breitbart that are going to cater to the more right of the ideological spectrum. And then you are going to have like HuffPost and BuzzFeed and Vice and Vox. They're going to be more of the liberal voice. What all of that leads to is uncertainty over the credibility of sources. And it's easy to fall into the fake news trap. It's a common thing for Donald Trump, our president, to call something that criticizes him fake news without considering that there are facts to back it up. He is generally attacking the New York Times and CNN for being fake news sources. So like I started the intro of the PowerPoint or this presentation is, if you can have facts to back it up, always consider that before you're quick to call something fake news. Now, on the flip side, you see a lot of garbage out there. Trust me, members of my family have shared a lot of garbage on Facebook, and I've had to call them out. Where's this coming from? Where is this meme coming from? Where is this article coming from? Can you trace it back to a reliable source? Is it associated with a university or a college? Or is it just some garbage that some Russian bot has put out there to try to make this political climate even more contentious and divisive? And that is definitely one way that you can attack fake news. If you can back something up with a credible source, like a university, a scientific study, actual data, investigative journalism, that's good investigative journalism, then you should be safe. Media's loss of credibility and trust. Really, it started around the 1980s. What you see, and there's a couple of reasons why, what you see is media conglomerates popping up. A conglomerate is a very large company. It is a parent company that has a bunch of small businesses underneath it. For example, a media conglomerate would be News Corp. Under News Corp, you're going to have Fox News, but also other things like I think the MLS network, Fox Searchlight Pictures, The Sun, which is I do believe a British newspaper. So you have a bunch of different, the Wall Street Journal. So News Corp owns a bunch of different news organizations and smaller media outlets. That means that News Corp really controls a lot of what you see. The same thing is for Disney. Disney owns a lot of different smaller news outlets. So Disney is controlling a lot of what we see. A lot of local news networks is owned by a company named Sinclair. Sinclair controls a lot of the local media market. That means a lot of what people are seeing at a local level is dictated by what this one company wants people to see. Sinclair does happen to be very conservative and actually requires a lot of reporting to be skewed toward the right. Media and bias. But here's the thing. Before you get all up in arms about local news trying to make you conservative or about hearing fake news from CNN, media doesn't make you liberal or conservative. You are socialized way before you start paying attention to the news. That doesn't mean that there's not implicit bias in the media. The journalists when polled, journalists do tend to be more liberal. They consider themselves more liberal. So it's really difficult to take yourself out of a situation and report on a story without an implicit bias in your storytelling. Some people, the more that you learn about government, some people are actually better at saying, oh wow, Steve Inskeep of NPR is definitely grilling Paul Ryan a lot harder than he would Nancy Pelosi, who's a Democrat. And you can tell it in his tone of voice, but you have to listen to it and you have to be aware of it. It's not making you liberal though. And the reason why it's not making you liberal is because you've already shaped your ideology by the time you start listening to Steve Inskeep on NPR, NPR's National Public Radio. How media does shape public opinion is by acting as a gatekeeper. The media tells us what's important by reporting on some topics, but ignoring others. So right now, October 4th, 2018, there are still children separated from their families at the border. There are still children being held in detention centers in Texas, but we're not hearing about it. So what we think, for what most people think in October 4th, 2018, is that the problem's been solved. It's over. Because the media isn't paying attention to it right now. So our opinion about that isn't as important as in October 4th, 2018, the fact that Brett Kavanaugh's vote for confirmation is going to be held tomorrow, or start to be held tomorrow. That's what we're worried about. That's what the media is telling us that is important. All right. Syria. Syria is still an ongoing conflict. We don't hear about Syria right now, so we don't think it's important. We're not worried about that. When we go to the polls in about a month, we aren't going to be thinking about Syria. We're going to be thinking about Supreme Court justices or whatever new topic is up for grabs at that point. Okay, whatever new topic the media tells us that we're supposed to be paying attention to, that's what we're going to be paying attention to. That's what we're going to think it's important. That's how the media shapes our opinion, telling us what is important by covering topics and ignoring others. Because, listen, we use what's called selective perception. We are going to view any news story through our liberal or conservative ideological lens. Take Brett Kavanaugh. Dr. Ford. Dr. Ford came out, testified that she was sexually assaulted by Brett Kavanaugh. So there are two ways that you could take that. More liberal people, or maybe more women, more people who are moderate, lean Democrat, they're going to look at that story like Brett Kavanaugh has no business being on the Supreme Court. This is awful. This is a job interview. We wouldn't hire him at Walmart. Why the heck are we going to put him on the Supreme Court? This is awful. Just appoint another judge. But conservatives, people who are leaning Republican, the Republican base, they're looking at it like, Brett Kavanaugh is a good man. He made a dumb mistake when he was a teenager. He shouldn't be held accountable for it. Watch out for your boys. Boys are going to be falsely accused. The Democrats are slandering him just because they're still mad about a stolen Supreme Court seat. Okay? So it just depends on whether you are a Democrat, Republican, liberal, or conservative, how you're going to view these news stories. And to top that off, the reason why the media doesn't really make us liberal or make us conservative is because we expose ourselves to the news that's closest to our ideology. So we are only going to choose to watch news that makes us feel good about our beliefs. So if you're liberal, you want to watch CNN because what you hear on CNN reflects what you already feel about politics. And if you're conservative, you want to listen to Fox News because Fox News just perpetuates what you already feel. And it's not telling you that it's not opening up your mind. It's not telling you, consider this idea. Consider this viewpoint. Walk in the other person's shoes for a minute. No, they don't do that. So you choose to watch what makes you feel good about your beliefs. And that's why the media isn't making you liberal. Dude, that happened a long time ago. That happened from your parents. That happened from your education. That happened from your demographic of person, your race, your gender, your income. What makes you liberal or conservative goes far beyond the media. You choose the media that you want to watch based off of your ideology.